The Golden Fleet organizes the surface navy into a high-low mix of approximately 87 large combatants and 85 small combatants. The high end anchors on the proposed Trump-class BBGX battleships, existing in future Arleigh Burke destroyers, and the DDGX next-generation design. The low end relies on the FFX frigate derived from the Coast Guard Legend-class cutter and the residual littoral combat ship fleet. 5 unmanned vessels are funded in FY 2027, with plans for 47 medium unmanned surface vessels across the 5-year defense program to extend sensing and magazine depth at lower cost. This architecture intends to break the Navy's long-standing practice of using high-end destroyers for routine presence and low-intensity missions. The fiscal anchor is the FY 2027 shipbuilding request of $65.8 billion, a 48% increase over the prior year and the second largest in real terms since 1955. The first year funds 34 manned ships and 5 unmanned platforms, with the FFX frigate carrying the most aggressive schedule, a first hull in the water by 2028 and delivery by June 2030. Although leadership has publicly suggested the Trump class could be built in 2.5 years, program documents place initial production in the early 2030s, and the lead ship USS Defiant likely entering service in the late 2030s or around 2040. To grow the battle force from 291 to 381 ships, the Navy must acquire 364 new hulls over 30 years, requiring a delivery tempo roughly twice the recent average. Sustaining that pace across 4 presidential administrations and shifting congressional support remains the plan's most uncertain variable. The Golden Fleet functions as an industrial mobilization strategy as much as a force design plan, aiming to raise distributed shipbuilding work from roughly 10% to 50% through modular construction and digital engineering. This ambition confronts a shrunken base. The skilled trades pool has contracted sharply since the 1980s, with multiple yards reporting pipelines too thin to replace retiring welders and pipe fitters. China builds roughly 200 merchant vessels for every American hull and has commissioned over 100 naval vessels in the past decade, while the U.S. Navy received fewer than 50. Allied investment, notably Hanwha's $5 billion modernization of the Philadelphia shipyard, targeting a throughput of up to 20 ships per year, is central to bridging the gap. Despite budgets having doubled since 2003, fleet size has not grown, underscoring that money alone cannot quickly rebuild lost capacity. Admiral Daryl Cottle's January 2026 C-Note codifies the Navy warfighting concept of tailored battle groups integrating carriers, large and small combatants, submarines, and unmanned systems under an enhanced mission command framework. Large capital ships serve as power projection hubs and integrated air defense commanders, while frigates and unmanned vessels absorb presence, interdiction, and mine countermeasure missions to preserve destroyer service life. The Navy explicitly acknowledges it can no longer assume a permissive environment, with peer competitors contesting the Red Sea, High North, and Western Pacific. The objective is to impose distributed dilemmas on adversaries, dispersing risk while retaining mass for protracted conflict. This hedge trades the survivability of individual small hulls for broader theater presence and faster industrial throughput. The high-low mix creates a tension between geographic dispersion and industrial concentration, because the plan relies on a few revitalized yards whose disruption by strike, accident, or labor shortage could cascade across the entire build schedule. Small combatants possess only point defense systems. An FFX frigate, armed with 21 rolling airframe missiles, exhausts its ready magazine after 3 to 4 supersonic intercepts, leaving it defenseless against a second salvo. In a hypersonic regime with flight times under 300 seconds in the South China Sea, low-end ships cannot generate sufficient intercept opportunities for independent operations. Losing a single large combatant would remove 5 to 8% of the fleet's total missile defense capacity, an exchange ratio that is unsustainable against an adversary producing anti-ship missiles at industrial scale. To sustain 381 hulls, the Navy must average 12.1 deliveries annually, a 50 to 100% increase over the recent rate of 6 to 8, requiring compression of test and trials that current infrastructure cannot guarantee.
From a Chinese maritime planner's viewpoint, the Golden Fleet signals fiscal strain as much as operational intent. A single Trump-class battleship costs the equivalent of roughly 15 Type 055 destroyers, a ratio that favors the PLA Navy in a sustained production competition. The U.S. 30-year timeline appears rigid when set against China's adaptable 5-year plan cycles, and the FFX 2028 target is seen as unrealistic. A schedule slip would leave the large combatants without sufficient screening mass. Chinese doctrine already fields DF-21D and DF-26D anti-ship ballistic missiles and is accelerating space-based targeting networks designed to track capital ships and overwhelm them with hypersonic saturation attacks. The optimal counter-strategy is therefore not hull-for-hull matching, but accelerating reconnaissance strike chains that render the Golden Fleet's exquisite platforms vulnerable, irrespective of their defensive suites.
The Golden Fleet attempts to reconcile industrial revitalization with a transformed warfighting posture, yet the two imperatives pull in opposite directions when tested against fiscal gravity and threat physics. Fielding 85 small combatants may stimulate yard throughput, but their limited survivability in a hypersonic missile environment turns them into potential liabilities rather than force multipliers. Concentrating immense capability in 20 to 25 Trump-class battleships, with the lead ship alone estimated near $18 billion, concentrates fiscal risk in a small number of platforms that adversaries will prioritize for targeting. Independent budget analysis projects the full 30-year plan will require about $40 billion annually, totaling over $1 trillion, roughly double recent appropriations. The burden of proof therefore rests on three propositions: that American shipyards can be rebuilt faster than competitors can outproduce them, that the high-low mix can endure massed missile attack, and that political will can outlast any single administration. If these conditions are unmet, the fleet remains more golden in name than in fact.